My name is Detective Ray. I've worked violent crimes for nearly 10 years, but nothing prepared me for the case I'm about to tell you. Back then, things were steady. Most cases were domestic or robbery related. I spent my days reviewing footage, chasing leads, and doing late-night interviews in cold rooms. Then came a strange call one morning. An adult woman named Amanda Greer was missing after her shift at a diner. She hadn't come home, hadn't called anyone. I took the report, thinking maybe it was a simple runaway. But something didn't sit right. Amanda's manager told me she clocked out just after 11 p.m. She was supposed to take the usual walk home, just 6 blocks. I pulled security camera footage from nearby shops. One angle showed her walking along the main road. The next camera, on the corner, caught only a dark shadow briefly pulling into the alley up ahead. Amanda never appeared in the next frame. I visited that alley myself. It was narrow, surrounded by rusted fences and dumpsters. No blood, no struggle, just a pair of shoe scuff marks near the wall. I made a note. My gut told me this was no ordinary case. We marked her as a missing person, but I didn't wait. I visited her apartment and interviewed her roommates. They hadn't seen or heard anything unusual. Her room was untouched. Nothing was taken. Her phone was off. It didn't feel like a planned disappearance. I posted the alley photo on our board at the station and kept digging. It was quiet for a few days. I began canvassing the area for witnesses, even if late. An old man said he heard an engine start fast around that time, but didn't see anything. That detail stuck. 6 days later, just as I started going cold on Amanda's case, a second report came in. Different town. A young woman named Lily Foster disappeared on her way home from a community gym. She lived alone, just a few minutes from the gym. When I read the file, my heart sank. She left around 10:45 p.m., just like Amanda. No signs of distress. Her phone last pinged near a loading dock behind the gym. I went there myself. The gravel was disturbed. A broken side mirror lay near the fence. This was no coincidence. I placed both victims on the board, side by side. 2 girls, both gone at night. No communication, no ransom. That's when I started requesting every traffic cam along those routes. It was painful work, frame by frame. But near the gym, around 10:55 p.m., I caught sight of something. A van, dark gray, no visible plates. It moved slowly, then stopped near the alley. Just a minute later, it pulled off again. I printed that photo, the shape, the behavior. It matched the timeline too well. Still, I needed more. We interviewed Lily's neighbors. One elderly woman mentioned something strange. A van parked across the street earlier in the week. She didn't think much of it at the time, but now it meant everything. I started requesting van registration logs, but nothing useful came up. No one with a van registered nearby had driven in that area recently. The make looked commercial. I now believed whoever was behind this knew what they were doing. This wasn't random. A week passed. I didn't sleep much. I had dreams about the girls being dragged into that van, unable to scream. I spent hours in front of the board, lines drawn, maps pinned, arrows and times connecting locations. We were tracking a ghost. Then came the third report. This time, I felt my stomach turn. Another girl. Her name was Katie Mercer. She had disappeared just outside a small bookstore after her evening shift. Time? Around 10:30 p.m. Her father had filed the report directly with the sheriff. I drove out the same night to speak with her family. The father, John Mercer, was calm but clearly trained. He had a soldier's posture, a sharp gaze. During our talk, I learned he was a retired Army logistics man. He'd spent years studying vehicle types, movement patterns. I showed him the van photo we had. I expected him to ask about the plate or the make, but instead, he leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "These tires," he said, "that's not from around here. That's military-grade tread desert pattern." My pulse jumped. I hadn't noticed that. He explained further. The tire type was typically used in rough terrain, built for stability in sand or rocky surfaces. He'd seen that kind of design in convoys operating in South America. That detail changed everything. I called in my team and told them to look beyond local data. If this van came from far, maybe even cross borders, then we had to think broader. I asked for vehicle entry logs, anything matching desert tread vans entering the US from outside. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. While those records were being pulled, we returned to the scenes of all 3 disappearances. We walked the alleys, parking lots, fences, looking for anything we missed. This time, we looked lower scuff marks, broken twigs, tire dents in the gravel. At Amanda's site, one small bolt was found that didn't match the local utility poles. At Lily's scene, our tech guy noticed faint skid marks leading behind the fence. Katie's spot had shoe drag marks, barely visible. Together, they told one story. Each girl had been taken by force into a vehicle waiting in a blind spot. With those physical clues noted, we organized a meeting back at the station. I gathered the full team. 2 analysts, 1 field agent, and a tech expert. We pinned all 3 girls' routes on the board. We added the van image, the tread clue, the broken mirror, the scuff marks. I highlighted the timing. Each abduction happened between 10:30 and 11 p.m. in low traffic areas. That meant the suspect knew when and where to strike. I asked the team, how could someone move through town 3 times without ever being caught on a full-plate camera? The tech expert suggested, maybe the van used clone plates or temporary covers. We dug through camera footage at least 2 miles beyond each scene, comparing van shapes. Finally, we found something. The same van was captured near a freight highway the night of Amanda's disappearance. It had no taillights and was driving under the speed limit. That meant they were trying to stay invisible. But what was more important, we now had the direction. It was heading southwest. That gave us a corridor to investigate. At that point, Border Patrol hadn't been involved yet, but given the tire clue and vehicle direction, I submitted a request for international cargo entries over the past 30 days. Our theory? This wasn't a local predator. It was something larger, possibly organized. While waiting, we visited nearby gas stations and truck stops. I printed the van's photo and showed it to every clerk and mechanic. One guy, late 50s, quiet, recognized it. He said it stopped for gas, paid cash. He remembered because the driver wore gloves, even though it was hot that night. The gas station had old camera footage, grainy but usable. We pulled the footage. The van parked just outside camera range, but we saw a man step out briefly, wearing a cap and dark jacket. He didn't enter the store, just filled up and left. That matched the glove story. I marked the location. That station was 30 miles from the last disappearance, heading toward the border. My mind kept circling one question. Where were they taking the girls? Then, on the 8th night after Katie vanished, our request to Border Patrol came through. A cargo truck, large and unmarked, had entered from Brazil. Entry was legal, but what caught our attention was this. The manifest claimed it was returning in 7 days after equipment delivery. But now 8 days had passed, no sign of it returning. I sat upright in my chair. This truck had entered with nothing unusual, but hadn't exited. I contacted border agents at the checkpoint. They reviewed exit footage. No sign of that truck. It vanished after entry. This changed the scope of everything. We had to be careful if this was a smuggling route. It meant dangerous people. We asked the border agent for GPS pings or way station records. The truck was last seen heading north, then veered west. It avoided main highways. That suggested knowledge of rural roads. We now had two goals: locate that truck and link it to our van suspect. It wasn't easy. The license was fake, but a small emblem sticker on the rear corner, barely visible, matched the van image from earlier. It was the same operation. That night, I called an emergency meeting. Everyone brought their notes. We laid out a theory. The van kidnapped the women and transported them to a hidden site. Then the larger truck was meant to move them further, possibly across a weaker section of the border. Half of us traced old bunkers and abandoned factories along the Southwest Trail. The other half continued interviewing truck stop employees, asking if they saw anything off. 3 days later, one officer called in. A retired warehouse guard remembered a large truck parked near an old water treatment bunker, about 60 miles out, long abandoned. He said it was unusual, especially because it had no markings. We drove out there that afternoon. The road was dust and broken rock. The place smelled like rust and weeds. No one lived nearby. We stayed low, circled the building. That's when we saw it. The truck, parked behind the structure, quiet. No driver in sight. I felt my chest tighten. We approached carefully. There were voices, faint, nervous. One officer pointed, movement near that side door. I signaled everyone to freeze. If the girls were inside, we couldn't risk a firefight. We circled back and took cover. We watched the door for nearly 30 minutes. 2 men came out, talking in a foreign language. They opened the truck's rear door briefly. Inside, I saw something movement. A hand. We called for backup, but didn't wait. I gave the silent signal. We moved in fast. 2 of us went to the left. I flanked the right with another agent. We moved like shadows. One suspect saw us and reached for something. I tackled him before he got far. Another tried to run, but was stopped by the second team. Inside the truck were 2 metal cages. In one of them, barely conscious, were 2 women, Katie and Amanda. Pale, weak, but alive. Lily wasn't there. That hit hard. We swept the bunker fully. Old papers, ropes, food wrappers. One phone tossed behind a pipe. It had photos, trafficking routes, names, and GPS markers. We arrested both men, took prints, DNA, the works. They were silent during questioning, just stared at the wall. Amanda and Katie were taken to the hospital. Amanda whispered something I'll never forget. We thought no one was coming. Back at HQ, we updated the board. 2 out of 3 rescued. But Lily was still missing. We dug deeper into the phone data. One marker was further south, a warehouse near the desert edge. We rushed there, but it was too late. The site had been cleared. In one bin, we found scraps of cloth matching Lily's last outfit. A blood stain confirmed our fear. She had been moved separately, likely before we hit the bunker. We may never find her. The horror of it all lingered. The 2 girls recounted chilling details. Being drugged, hearing others crying nearby, metal floors, being told they'd be shipped soon. The operation was slick, efficient. They moved people like cargo. It shook even the most hardened officers. The cages were custom, lined with padding, so no sound escaped. These weren't amateurs. They'd done this before. The van was never found, but the tire clue pointed out by Katie's father remained the biggest break. Without it, we wouldn't have thought to expand the search beyond our region. The desert pattern tread was rare in the US and led us straight to international smuggling patterns. It taught me one thing: small details win big cases. That father's eye cracked open an entire operation. One of the suspects finally broke. He gave up names, contacts, and a key port used to move people hidden inside mining crates. Lily's name was on a shipment list. We believe she was trafficked further before we ever reached the truck. It haunted us, but without that final break, even Amanda and Katie might have been lost. We stopped one operation, but many remained out there. Katie recovered slowly. Amanda struggled more. She spent weeks in therapy. The nightmares stayed with her. But one day, she sent a message to my desk. Just 2 words: "Thank you." I printed it and taped it above the board where their pictures had once been. It reminded me why we do this. Why the sleepless nights and endless digging matter. The clues, the tire treads, the mirror, the glove-wearing man, the father who saw what we missed. These things taught me that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like delivery men.